Eric Nehm from The Athletic. Hello. When you were asking Giannis that question, do you consider this season to be a failure after he has just been eliminated from the playoffs by a margin of 4-1 by the 8 seed Miami Heat? Did you have a sense that that would lead to an answer like the one we heard Giannis give?
Uh, I mean, I thought I was gonna get that, except without the start of it, where there was a lot of anger. Just because like Giannis, he tends to be quite philosophical. So in my mind, I kind of thought it would be a fun way to delve into the topic, right? Like there is this very binary kind of win lose type of thing in sports, and he just doesn't really subscribe to that. So I did think we were going to get into something interesting, and how he views wins and losses and failure and success. I thought that's what we were going to get into. I didn't think it was going to upset him in the way that it did. But I guess the fact that it did ended up making his answer, even better and more interesting, because that's just like kind of who he is. And yeah, I didn't think that was exactly how it was going to go, but I was kind of I was excited and interested in finding out kind of how he views the end of a season and how all of that goes.
I loved the simplicity of the question because it exposed that a very simple line of demarcation, success versus failure, provoked this clearly response that was forged in some sort of therapy he had been doing on himself. So when you say anger, how angry was he? Because you cover him, you know him. Give us the scale of Giannis' anger. Contextualize it for us.
I mean, I've never been on a basketball court with him. I feel like that's probably like the highest scale. Like whatever number that is, that's as high as it goes. He's never mean mugged at me while I've asked him a question in a press conference. That would be pretty strange. But as far as press conferences go, like that was more excitable than I think I've seen him in a very long time. That isn't typically how he reacts. Typically it's and what makes him so good is that he is so thoughtful. And like you said, like I think over the years, he's always tried to express himself, even from when he was very young. And he was trying to learn English, and the easiest way for him was to talk basketball. And then I think just in the last like 5 years, he's figured out how to delve really deep into like how he thinks and feels and senses the world. And obviously, when he won the championship in 2021, he talked a lot about how he worked with a sports psychologist and how the Bucks have kind of helped him open that up. And in the last few years, his charity started to do a lot more work with mental health in Milwaukee and really around the world. And you can just tell that this is something that he's passionate about. And that again was why I thought the idea of failure, excuse me, was going to elicit something interesting out of him. And I'm happy ultimately that he was able to kind of express himself in that way.
Hey, it's David Sampson here. How are you? There was
I'm great.
something that was said that was interesting about being personal, and we couldn't see your face. We could only see his face. Did you take anything personally there that he was doing? And why do you think, given your relationship history, did he even go in that direction, thinking that you may take this personally?
I think it's sometimes with language with Giannis, it being a second language. I think the fact that he used you as something to refer to me, but I think he was more so referring to the larger you, the collective you, the you out there that is trying to get a job or have a job or a promotion or whatever it may be, rather than me at the Athletic and whether or not I'm getting a promotion year to year or getting a raise year to year or whatever it may be. So I just think, him and I have gotten to know each other pretty well over the years. I've asked him probably thousands of questions at this point. So I think he quickly realized that maybe it felt more personal than he wanted it to, because he was trying to refer to the collective you as opposed to actually me, Eric Nehm. Like, so I don't know.
Eric, I can't help but notice that you're not Michael Jordan, and he made you answer a question as if you were Michael Jordan. And do you realize that Michael Jordan would have answered that question far differently?
Yeah, I would think so. I would, if he does answer questions the same way I do. I have a lot of questions about why I'm not better at what I do. because man, yeah, I wasn't really sure how to react because obviously like I can understand the idea of, yeah, if you lose 1 year, you're not a failure. But I think when you look at this Bucks season, they had the best record in the league. They were trying to win a championship. They thought they should have won a championship last year. They won a championship the year before. I can see why someone would say this year in particular, losing to the 8th seed is a failure. Like I could see why someone would say that. And I don't know. It was very interesting to me to hear Michael Jordan invoked and then meaning to answer for Michael Jordan. I will be honest, I was not quite ready for that.
You did great. You sounded just like him.
Should Giannis have mentally and physically prepared himself for the postseason during the regular season, even if the Bucks would have ended up in the playoff game playing against a 1 seed, because that's what he kind of does, and then he becomes a different person in the playoffs?
So you're like,
should he have done what Jimmy Butler did?
Yeah, so you should do the playoff Jimmy thing. I think over the years, Giannis has kind of messed around with that. He's done it a little bit, but he's too intense. Like, he can't help himself. He just really wants to play hard all the time. And if there's a chase down block against the Washington Wizards, he's going to go out and get it. Like, he can't help himself. That competitive bone in his body, which you would think like with Jimmy Butler would work the same way, but apparently Jimmy's got a little bit of an on-off.
Doesn't
switch.
give a shit about the Washington Wizards, Eric. Does not give a shit.
Apparently not. Apparently not. And obviously it's working out for him. So yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I don't think Giannis is going to reconsider his approach, Jessica, but I mean, maybe that will happen in the future.
So from someone that covers the Bucks as much as you do, why was this such a disappointment? From a Heat fan perspective, we're based out of Miami. We're all huge Heat lifers. Never doubted them for a second. We're wondering why we were watching and we were wondering why Budenholzer wasn't calling timeouts. We were wondering why Giannis wasn't as effective in the fourth quarter. Was it his own lack of skill from the free throw line that was kind of getting in his own head? What went wrong specifically that set the table for this historic upset?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot in there. You know, after game 1, I just remember thinking about, ironically enough, like questions I've asked Giannis in the past. When the Bucks lost to the Heat in the bubble, I asked Giannis, hey, did you ever ask Bud to cover Jimmy Butler? And Giannis looked at me and said, no. Why would you ask that? And I said, well, because you caught the ball as it went through the hoop 6 straight times. So I thought maybe you'd want to cover him instead. But what he was getting at was like, I'm a help defender. That's how Bud's always used me. That's how this works. That's how we have the #1 defense in the league. And then lo and behold, they played the Heat the next year in 2021, and Giannis covers Jimmy Butler for all 4 games. The Bucks sweep them. They destroy them. Jimmy never feels comfortable at any point during that series. And fast forward to this year after game 1, and yes, Giannis only played 11 minutes before he got hurt, but they opened the game with Jrue Holiday on Jimmy Butler. And I asked Mike Budenholzer after the game, why'd you go with Jrue instead of Giannis when Giannis worked on Jimmy in 2021? And he just kind of said, you know, we have a lot of options. We decided that Jrue was the way to go. If you watched the press conference with Mike Budenholzer, I asked him the same question last night. Why didn't you decide in games 4 or 5 to go with Giannis instead of Jrue? And it's a weird situation because Jrue Holiday is, I mean, he just won best defender in our anonymous players poll at The Athletic. Right. Everyone in the world thinks he's the best defender. And he just didn't have anything for Jimmy Butler this series. And it was clear that you needed some more size. And in my opinion, it seemed like Giannis was the answer. And maybe because of the injury, he couldn't do it. Maybe because of, you know, just all the work he put into getting himself back on the floor. You saw the cramps in game 4 down in Miami. Like, all of that might be why we never saw Giannis on him, but to me, that was kind of where it all started for this upset to start to happen, was just how comfortable Jimmy was able to get without seeing Giannis at all times.
Eric, were you like me? I was visibly scared when, while down 6, Jimmy Butler was telling Jrue Holiday, I own you.
I mean, it was a bold take, but also probably a correct one, right? Like at no point did it really ever feel like Jrue was comfortable. And I cannot really I can't describe how crazy that is, because Drew Holiday makes everyone miserable. Like on a nightly basis, that's what I watch, is Drew Holiday making the other team's offensive player miserable. And in this series, he didn't have anything for Jimmy Butler. And it was really hard to disagree with Jimmy's assessment of kind of what he was doing to Drew Holiday and just how comfortable he was out there on the floor.
So, Eric, what happens? I want to get to what you said before reestablishing that Drew Holiday is, in fact, like one of the great mile markers if you're an offensive player. You summited him.
Yeah.
It's the idea that Bud's plan confused you and lots of people watching the game. Like, no timeout being called, the list of adjustments that were not made. Do you expect to cover him as the head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks next season?
I think it's a really interesting question. You know, my story, because I stayed up very late because of the time of the game and Central Time last night. My story hasn't gone up yet, but like one of the things that, you know, I'm contemplating in my story today at The Athletic is just, you know, how many different parts of that game you end up questioning, right? Like, you had a timeout with half a second left in regulation. Why didn't you use it? I know that Bud's preference is to play without a timeout late in games when you get a stop. Okay, that's fine. But when Grayson Allen has the ball in his hands and doesn't,
how did that feel?
I forgot about
how
Grayson
did the
Allen.
season ending with Grayson Allen not getting a
No one
shot
wanted the
off
shot
in time?
No one wanted to take that shot.
What the
probably not ideal. Probably not what you want. At that point, maybe just call timeout. Like there was two of them, so maybe just call one. Like once Giannis throws it back to Chris, and then Chris like makes a move, doesn't get quite open enough because his knee is not quite what it needs to be. Maybe take the timeout there. I don't know. So I do think it's a really interesting spot. The Bucks have been the best regular season team in the NBA for the last 5 seasons, and it's not particularly close. But they have one championship to show for it, and they have 3 very disappointing ends to their season in the postseason. And I think that's where it really gets tough, because you have to ask, like, all right, is it cool if we win all these games, but then in the playoffs, we just don't trust this guy? And, you know, I would guess Mike Budenholzer would say, I've been dealt a crummy hand. First, when I'm with the Hawks, I have to play LeBron every single year. And now 3 of the 5 times I've gone to the playoffs, I have to coach against Eric Spoelstra. Like, is that really like that? This is the card. Like, these are the cards. Come on, this can't be what I have in my hand. But at the same time, them the breaks. Like that's how this stuff works. Like sometimes it isn't fair. And if you're talking about ways that a team can make changes, the coach is among the easiest. And that to me really feels like a spot where I just don't know how Bud walks into that locker room next year and has a lot of confidence from his players.
It sounds like Bud's about to walk into his realtor's office and they're going to tell him,
Let's go! Let's go!
There it is. Thank you, Eric. Thank you for being Michael Jordan.
Hey, happy to do it.
So the way this show works is that in between breaks, we end up going off and getting lunch, getting coffee, talking about the national political climate. And David Sampson has shown me a video in the last 3 minutes that I had not seen until he showed it to me. And it was of Tucker Carlson emerging into the light and filming a video down the barrel from his personal studio, having now been consciously uncoupled from Fox News. And I was unnerved. I was scared watching it because my main thought, David, was, oh, this guy's good.
So we always knew he was good. We talked about this earlier in the week when he was let go by Fox, and I was very curious. I've been waiting for that video. That's why I brought it up to you during the break. I've been waiting to see what his first move was going to be. When you are let go from something that has defined you, your next move is important. And Tucker Carlson wasn't going to screw it up because you only get one try to come back one time. And so he releases this video, and what struck me about it is that he gets it in a way that scares the absolute bejesus out of me, because I'm someone who I don't want him talking to me, and then he's talking to me, and I'm listening to him, and I'm thinking, uh-oh, he's saying something very interesting to me, speaking to me, who's far more, let's just say, center of the aisle. And he's explaining to me why not only should I be concerned about the right, I should be concerned about the left. And on top of that, I ought to believe that he's the one who can help me.
It is not a video about the left. It is not a video about the right. It is a video that is targeting corporate power,
Truth,
demographic change, these terms that are not meant to be speaking directly to the fringes, but also at the same time, it is meant to speak directly at the fringes and more of the middle.
I'm wondering whether he had an agent work with him, because he's got to move next where he's going to wonder about taking the audience. New York Times did a report about what went through Fox's mind and the Murdoch's mind. You know, Logan Roy and Roman are deciding what to do with him. And it comes out that there were some redacted emails that were a big cause, that were maybe the final straw in the Tucker Carlson back. And it caused the settlement with Dominion, and now it continued to be the end of Tucker Carlson. But what he did, they weaponized Tucker Carlson by doing this, which may have been worse for their business than keeping him.
They had to pay $878.5 million, I believe. $787.5 million to Dominion over these lies in which Tucker Carlson was revealed to have lied to his audience about what he really believes. That came out in all of the reporting. And now what he is doing is two things. One, he is establishing, I am the only place that will tell you the real truth, uncompromised by corporate power. And he is also saying, and this is the scary part, in between the lines, I'm running for president.
And the irony of him saying that I am where truth lives, where the reason that he has to make this video is that he is not where truth lives. And so much so that the Murdochs made a business decision, acknowledged as a business decision to settle, and acknowledged as a business decision to fire him. Now the business decision is, how do we potentially compete against him when he could be not just running for president, which I don't think he's going to do. I actually think he's running for corporate president, and that he is deciding how to cash in even more on what just happened.
His market share of the American mind is about to boom, I believe. And it's scary because this is a guy who actually, unlike Trump, does play chess. I believe he's really good at comms, at communications, at political messaging, at realizing what is the space that is left unmined by corporations that he is now going to run against as his antagonist. And David, I believe that Tucker Carlson reads the American room. He reads the mood in a way that is special politically, in a way that Trump does not. I believe that Donald Trump creates the mood. His instincts, Trump is instinctive. He is an animal whose base instincts have aligned with this moment and have created this moment. Tucker is reacting to that and finding the spaces that have been left uncapitalized upon.
When I think about which is more important, to create a mood or to read a mood, it's reading the mood. Because the person who creates it, and then it resonates or it doesn't resonate. The reader of the mood has to decide which it is and then capitalize on it. So Tucker Carlson is way more dangerous than Donald Trump to me.
I agree.
Because of his skill in reading. The question is, if you can both create and read, you're Jimmy Butler if you can do that.
There's been an oratorical vacuum left in America. Barack Obama was obviously the best orator of the modern era.
As a creator or a reader?
That's a really good question.
So
I would say that he was a reader.
I agree with you because the mood was already existed.
Correct.
He didn't create it. He came in to save it.
And Trump filled that oratorical vacuum because he is also really good at talking, right? Really good at talking. But he's not actually strategic in the way that he talks. And
it's a TV show.
Tucker Carlson's playing chess.
Okay, you
Trump is
guys
not.
are creating like this super powerful being. Like, can we just let him scream into the abyss? He's not the first Fox host to get fired in a scandal and then just like go do his off the mainstream to his fans. And he's got, like Bill O'Reilly still has a ton of fans. I'm sure he's very powerful among a certain sect of older people that still watch his stuff. This isn't the first time this happened, and I'm okay just ignoring it. Let him scream to his followers, and like we don't have to create this boogeyman out of a fired Fox host.
My concern is that if too many people do that and ignore it, all of a sudden that can create something bigger than what can be handled. I don't believe that people should ignore what he's doing.
Are you learning from history on the Trump thing? Because to a degree, you could argue that's what happened with Donald Trump the first time he was elected.
The cold shiver I felt going down my spine is because I want to believe that Jess is right, but I think that David and I are more aligned. Like, my instincts are telling me that this guy is not Bill O'Reilly, that he's better, that he is more.
People were saying this about Ron DeSantis with Trump, and like that is so far not going very well
DeSantis is
for
so
him.
deeply uncharismatic. DeSantis can't fill the rhetorical void. He is not good enough. Tucker Carlson is, man, and we're living in this moment of utter desperation.
By the way, DeSantis creates the mood. He doesn't read it. He's the creator too.
And the bar is just on the floor for someone to take the reins of a movement that is scarier when there is strategy behind it. And I want to believe that Tucker Carlson will be relegated to the Mike Francesa podcasting app equivalent that Bill O'Reilly has been banished to. But I believe that Tucker Carlson is going to be incredibly effective in ways that demand that we reckon with how he is actually a liar. Like, the point of all of us saying this is that don't let him have the authority on truth-telling, and it needs to come with the recognition that he's actually good at fake truth-telling.
He is really good at fake truth-telling, except it is all lies, and if we elevate him, it's doing the same thing that we did with Donald Trump, which is when you start covering it because it's like, whoa, this is weird, and this is possible, and this is spooky, and look at the way he's speaking to this specific audience. Just let him speak to that audience and let it go. Because if we did learn anything from Trump, it was starting to legitimize that in the media is what gave a swell to the people who once viewed him at the beginning when he was calling everybody rapists and criminals. It legitimized him in the eyes of those in the middle who can now sort of stomach it because people like Tucker Carlson or whoever else on Fox News were telling them, hey, you know what? It might be okay. He's just a little out there and zany. Like, let's not legitimize it.
I don't think it's the same instance though, because Tucker has a legitimacy that Donald Trump didn't. Whether it's in your own personal eyes, that's different. But in terms of a political figure, he has a legitimacy that Donald Trump kind of needed, and platforms like hosting SNL kind of. And the longer he hung around, the longer he became a factor. And he eventually won that there. But I do think ultimately everybody gets into this, and we see this with DeSantis. We think people from that Republican Party are as shameless as Donald Trump. And when they have to campaign against Donald Trump and point out points where Donald Trump should have shame, they turn the light onto their own shamelessness, and they can't hang in the shamelessness game with Donald Trump. No one can. It's the Trump card.
I'm cool with like calling out when someone is being racist, misogynist, a white supremacist, like calling out those behaviors like that. I'm not saying there's no like value to it, but it is like creating a boogeyman, saying like this person's going to become like so powerful that I think is dangerous, and that actually becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It's not becoming though. So no one's sitting around waiting for Don Lemon's response to being canned by CNN. It didn't come up during the break.
No.
It's not something that I'm looking for. It doesn't matter to me because I don't view him in the same way. And I don't agree. I want to make sure you're clear on this. This is not me agreeing with Tucker Carlson or watching Tucker Carlson. I'm trying to talk about what I think his impact could be. And us talking about it doesn't create it. Us talking about it has a way to fight against it. And what you said about Trump, you ignore something long enough, it's like a physical problem or a mental problem. You ignore it long enough and it becomes too large to handle. And that we have fallen victim to before, and I'm not sure we should fall victim to it again. And Carlson just fired the first shot across the bow with that video.
It's a matter of like legitimizing the behavior, because instead of calling it out, we're just like talking about how like crazy it is or how different it is, right?
I don't. Are we culpable though? If he's running for president for the Republican Party, isn't that legitimacy?
There's
in its own
a
right?
lot of fringe candidates running for president of the Republican Party
And
in a
to-
given
to-
election cycle.
To Jess's point, he hasn't declared yet. This is me getting ahead of it. But I also believe that he's dangerous. And if we don't reckon with his danger, we run the risk of being killed by it. The question of who is charismatic is what we were just talking about in between segments. And Fart Bear was saying, I don't find Tucker Carlson charismatic. He's a dweeb, bow tie, worst guy at a frat party, and I agree personally. My taste is also that. My taste, David, is to remember that, yeah, this guy had his main writer posting on a deeply racist message board racist things under a pseudonym. He's the guy who has obviously been lying to his audience. He is unpersuasive. But when I see the theater, how he does performance on stage, down the barrel to that cell phone in that video, I'm like, oh, but he's also good at this. And I was reminded of what it means to be good at media relations, at podium performance, when I was watching Aaron Rodgers get introduced.
So bad.
No, well, look, it's David. It's so easy to get reporters on your side. You just got to say their name back to them. Good question, Ian. Thanks, Will. Hi.
When we plan those, so the way you sit, right, you have the player in the middle. Sometimes you put the player on the side because you want the manager in the middle or the owner likes to be in the middle. And you had Rodgers flanked by Douglas and by the coach.
Joe Douglas is.
He's
yoked.
A man, right? He's large. He's uncomfortable. He's been forced to defend something that's indefensible. And they had him meet the media before. So this was his second time talking to the media about this situation. And all Rodgers was doing was trying to explain why he's not in the wrong about anything. That he was ruined by the Packers. They didn't call him enough because he didn't have Wi-Fi, because he only FaceTime. What kind of idiocy is he saying, I only do the FaceTime? So if you're going to try calling me, that doesn't work, and I'm looking at my phone, I don't see any FaceTimes. What does he expect, like Vince Lombardi to FaceTime him to say, hey, we want you back? You're signed. I don't have to FaceTime you. You're a Packer.
Did we all think immediately of Dan when we heard Rodgers say that? Or is that just my instinct? Because I was like, oh, this is Dan Le Batard. Dan Le Batard wants to FaceTime in ways that are baffling. Just give me a phone call, man.
Well, he doesn't do well with texts, and the FaceTimes are fine. I actually like the FaceTime because it means you have his attention until you get the FaceTime, and he's actually walking, looking forward, and the phone is like shaking and on the sidewalk and looking up at his beard. But whatever the case is, I just was annoyed at Aaron Rodgers for several things. The FaceTime issue was only third place for what annoyed me.
But the FaceTime thing, right? With Dan, I'm like, this is just the way he is. He has an AOL email address. Like, he's not good at technology. Rodgers.
But the FaceTime is better than when he sends a group text with a different group each time. Oh, and then like you have like a group with like just Chris Billy, just Mike Billy Chris, just Jeremy Roy, and then you end up with like 1,000. Yeah, he does this to everyone, right?
And I believe it's because of incompetence.
Yes.
With Rodgers, I'm like, does he think that we are stupid? Is Aaron Rodgers...
Yes, he does.
Is he winking at everybody because this is so obviously a lie? Or is he actually thinking, as per the immunized versus vaccinated thing, is he actually thinking that he's pulling a fast one on everybody by talking about how he only FaceTimes?
I've always thought, and going back to that topic about lying about his status, that's ego. And so when you ask a player, Aaron Rodgers is a big ego guy, obviously. And so he's sitting at that press conference, and he actually believes that he's talking to a Jets fan base like Stugotz, where no matter what he says, it doesn't matter. They are a winning team now. They are a Super Bowl contender now. He could say anything, he could do anything, and it wouldn't matter. So he has created the mood. He's not reading it. He's creating this narrative around him that makes him into the MVP that he was, that makes him into the Super Bowl winner that he was, not giving up the shit about what he is, which is disinterested, and I say that word purposefully, not disinterested in the outcome of a Jets season.
My feeling about Rodgers and the Jets is that it's funny when the people who hate the Jets and the people who love the Jets want the same thing. We all want Aaron Rodgers to be the quarterback. We all do. It's what Rodgers did. Mike, what he did in that press conference was going to be always the easiest thing he ever did as a Jet.
My whole attitude in watching this finally come to fruition after months of fantasy booking it, hell, possibly years, is
Let's go!
Either way, it's going to be big. It's going to be sloppy. It's going to be all the things it was in Green Bay. And hear me out. That was in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And I know the NFL is larger than life, but there is something to the New York of it all. We're watching Jalen Brunson become one of the all-timers because he's getting, as Dan likes to put it, time squared. And if he couldn't handle it in Green Bay, how is this going to go there?
You wouldn't have rather watched him hold a clipboard in Green Bay?
I think I want this story now. I want this story now. And he doesn't have the titles to lean on. The small town hero aspect.
New York.
Doesn't have that history with this market. And while he represents hope, that will go away very quickly there.
The hope is baked into the futures. It's baked into all the Super Bowl odds, right? It's as though he is coming in to save Stugotz.
This is the right time to peter out for legal reasons, I think. The Sinatra estate, please don't sue us.
What if it works?
You want the Sinatra estate to sue us? It's
Didn't
not
do
your
that.
money. What do you care?
As long as you're not singing Marvin Gaye, I think you're good.
Or Smokey Robinson.
Very litigious.
Aaron Rodgers, though, saying that he's not here to be the Messiah.
I can't even.
Like, I don't know you. I don't think you know how messianic complexes work.
Wait, what were David's other top two things? Like, do you have a top 5 list? You said that was like the third thing you hated. Yeah.
I wasn't
give 'em
pleased
to
with
us.
him talking about the Super Bowl trophy being lonely. I thought that was bothersome to me. He
Wait,
walked
why?
by it because he was trying to point out that he is adding to the thought that he's going to help bring a Super Bowl to New York. When you bring that up, you are bringing attention to the fact that they've been a failure since Namath.
That's why he's the Messiah.
But he's not good enough to deliver on it, and he knows it. He's
Well,
not
this is
interested enough.
Hold on. I mean, he was back-to-back MVPs for 2 seasons. He was hurt last year on a team he didn't want to be on with a coach he was like okay about, but a team in totality that didn't really mesh together with what his skill sets are.
He was also bad.
He was also injured too.
But you mentioned that, but also he was also bad for him.
And he and
Okay,
Robert
Mikey.
Saleh aren't exactly, I mean.
No, but that's why they have Hackett, right?
Well,
God.
Nat Hackett, finally being the bait that got Aaron Rodgers to a different team. Aaron Rodgers, the promise of it, to Tony's point, is that the Jets, more than any other team in the NFL, were actually a quarterback away. They had an excellent defense. They were starting, at their best, Mike White. At their worst, obviously, Zach Wilson. Aaron Rodgers is the perfect fit for this team.
The old Aaron Rodgers. The name Aaron Rodgers.
But that was a year ago.
But old Aaron Rodgers isn't.
Even bad Aaron Rodgers is still really good, though.
The roulette wheel named Aaron Rodgers is absolutely a gamble that the Jets had to take.
I just don't. So to finish my top 3
Wait, before you finish your
problems.
top 3,
Okay.
it is lonely, though, right? It's by itself. Like, he was stating an objective fact. The trophy's probably sad. He wants a little friend. Yeah. You're a lawyer, right? Did he lie?
I'm not accusing him of lying, actually, about anything. I'm just telling you what didn't sit well as an opening day press conference.
You think he's overrated?
When you've got, well, I think he's overrated as a player. I think he's overrated as a person. I think he's not as beloved as you would
Properly
think.
rated as a
inside
person,
Clubhouse.
probably.
But I would
Accounting for
say
9/11 conspiracy theories and how
all
he's
the
working
things
for
that he
the
does.
heir to the Johnson & Johnson pharmaceutical fortune after being the #1 outspoken critic of the pharmaceutical industry, despite all of that.
Well, maybe not number one.
Likes RFK Jr. tweets as recently as like 2 days ago.
And he's into an Eden's daughter. Now,
Allegedly.
apparently. So the number one issue for me is that he wants to be the story, so he would only say that he is year to year. And you're already starting the distraction. We haven't even gotten to the voluntary workout part, to the training camp part, to maybe winning a game, and he wants us to keep talking about whether or not he's going to stay in New York.
The voluntary workout part, though, not to be underrated, because he did not want to do any of that with the Packers.
But you're on a new team. You're just going to show up.
But this is
because
what
it's
I
great
mean.
media.
He knows how to work a room. Aaron Rodgers, Constitution. It reminded me, he's handsome, he's smiling, he's going back and forth with the media as the #1 critic of the media, arguably, among professional athletes. He knows how to do all of this. When he was a regular favorite of this show, he was good at this.
I do want to point out, this is not because of his relationship with that other show, right? I did not form my opinion of Aaron, so people may think that there is some implicit bias in what I'm saying. I've had this view of him for much longer than I've been doing this.
I believe that Aaron Rodgers is both the perfect person for the New York Jets and also the worst person.
But what will it end in a Super Bowl? Don't tell me
It
about whether
might.
or not.
Dude, look at the AFC East.
It's a 1 in 32 chance.
I'm with Juju. I'm telling you the Jets are not making the playoffs.
I mean, if you carry over what we saw from last year,
The defense, man.
the defense and now
Brees
Hall
Hall
is
healthy.
healthy.
But wait, is Tua playing the full season? Because if Tua's playing, the
Changes
Jets
the
are
dynamics.
probably the third best team in that division.
Learned how to fall.
yeah, it does change
Jiu-jitsu.
the dynamics.
He's going to play all year because he knows how to fall now.
Did you
Don't
have it?
worry.
Did you have a #1 thing?
Yeah. Were you listening?
Oh, that was it. That was #1.
Number one is the fact that he's going to be in the conversation because he would only commit. What were you doing? Do you need more coffee?
I was waiting for like the sound. I thought we have a sound at the end of like. a
This
list
wasn't
like
an
that.
official top 5 list. It was just the 3 things that bothered
It was
me.
3 things. You don't get the fanfare for 3
Yeah, no.
things.
And you were
fanfare.
so distracted.
Could you
by
just
your-
make up 2 more and like actually do it the right way
Yes.
though?
Yeah, can we get 2 more out of you?
Come on, 2 more.
No.
No?
He is not your puppet.
I have
Oh.
3. That's it. I'm not going to make up 2 just so we can play the music.
But that's good enough for you?
That's it. Do you have 2 more? Bring it on. Pablo, do you even know what we're talking about?
David's takes are trapped in his pickpocket-proof shorts, and he dares us to come and get them.
Top 3 list. They do that on the McAfee show. This is the
Yeah.
Le Batard Show, okay?
He didn't
we do
wanna
top
mention
5s,
that show.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay?